The first time I noticed something peculiar about the backyard slide was on a damp Sunday evening. The air was thick and still, like it always is before a storm. My daughter Jenny, with her mop of tangled curls, begged me to let her play outside, just for a few minutes. Finally, relenting, I opened the sliding door, the wheels groaning with age. She darted out onto the wooden deck, her laughter echoing off the close-by houses. Watching her run to the playground set at the corner of our small yard, I saw it, the slight shift, a shimmer in the air around the slide. It was subtle, the kind of thing you'd dismiss if you weren't paying attention. The golden slide, freshly polished, seemed to ripple when she climbed its small ladder. I shook my head, blaming it on the heat or my imagination. Jenny's giggles rang out again as she whooshed down, but then silence. A heartbeat later, she was at the bottom, looking puzzled. She turned her head slowly, as if gauging where she was. I called out, asking if she was all right, and she nodded, her cheeks flushed. Still, something about her expression kept me watching. The subtle, unearthly quiet that had fallen around us amplified the soft rustle of the leaves and the distant hum of a passing car. Jenny walked back to the ladder, ready for another ride, and I settled into a chair, craning my neck to keep an eye on her. There was a tight feeling in my gut, a parental instinct I couldn't shake off. Shadows stretched across the yard as the day dipped towards evening, and the cool breeze carried a whisper of unease. Despite my misgivings, I tried to dismiss the sensation. But even from a distance, I could sense something was slightly off. Each time Jenny slid down, it seemed there was a fraction of hesitation in her gait, a question lingering in her eyes. As the weeks passed, I found myself drawn to the backyard more often, coffee mug in hand, watching the slide whenever Jenny played. It had become a compulsion to observe, to make sense of the disquieting feeling that clung to me like a persistent shadow. Jenny's friends would often come by after school, their laughter a buoyant melody in the languid afternoons. Each trip down the slide was uneventful, yet unsettling. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows, I decided to test my suspicions with Jenny's friend, Max. With his shock of red hair and a mischievous grin, he was daring and unfazed by much. I perched on the garden chair, watching closely. When Max took his turn on the slide, I saw it again, the ripple, a slight shimmer around the golden curve. Holding my breath, I awaited his descent. There was that brief, uncanny moment where he wasn't visible that hung in the air. And then there he was, at the bottom, a familiar flash of confusion on his freckled face. That was weird, Max said, rubbing his head as if waking from a dream. My heart raced as I engaged him in light conversation, all the while scrutinizing his reactions, his words. He seemed untouched, yet something indefinable hung in the air, like the scent of rain that hasn't yet fallen. Do it again, I suggested lightly, desperate for answers. Max obliged, and again. Each moment of disappearance felt like a thread pulled taut. The inexplicable seconds stretched, laden with tension that thrummed beneath the normalcy of children's play. The next day, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. While Jenny was at school, I ventured out to the backyard, standing in front of the slide myself. The air felt different here, thicker, heavier. I ran my fingers along the smooth, cool surface, noting the peculiar shine that seemed to dance across its length. It was during this quiet moment of introspection that a vague memory resurfaced, like the echo of a forgotten dream. In the days when the slide was new, I recalled overhearing the former owners mention something about it, a hesitation in their voices that now made sense. The slide was different. It had a history. Determined to uncover any hint of truth, I rummaged through old property records and papers in the attic. Under layers of dust, a yellowed newspaper clipping caught my eye. It was an old article detailing mysterious disappearances at a local park, with phrases like vanished without a trace and only seconds long. My pulse quickened. The park mentioned was demolished long ago, but maybe, just maybe, that slide had found its way here. I returned to the yard, standing back to observe the surroundings. The bright afternoon sun seemed to dim as clouds gathered, casting an odd, otherworldly pallor over the slide. Could these disappearances be connected to it, somehow drawing kids into another realm, if only for fleeting moments? Confronted with more questions than answers, an unsettling idea formed. I needed to gather more evidence, maybe find some old neighbor who could shed light on the eerie phenomena linked to this innocuous-looking piece of playground equipment. Determined to uncover the truth, I decided to find out more about the old owners of the property. I knocked on a few neighbors' doors, asking what they remembered about them. Most shrugged, offering little more than gossip about quarrels or quietness. It wasn't until I reached Mr. Thompson's house at the end of the block that I got something useful. A retired professor with a fondness for local history. His eyes lit up when I mentioned the slide. "Ah, yes," he said, leaning back in his armchair. "The Alderley slide. Strange story, that one." Listening intently, the tale unfolded. The Alderleys were a reclusive bunch, rarely seen outdoors, save for their strange son Peter, who was known to disappear for hours, only to be found in odd places miles away. It stopped happening after the slide was removed, donated to a local church. Peter always claimed it was magic, Mr. Thompson chuckled, but it was a humorless sound, laden with skepticism, blended with caution. Felt out of place. They did, he continued, noting that the family moved not long after donating the slide. As he spoke, a chill ran down my spine. Thanking Mr. Thompson, I left, mind churning with possibilities. This was more than a backyard oddity. This was steeped in history, wrapped in myths that might hold startling truths. The deceptive normalness weighed heavy on my mind as I returned home, My curiosity stoked further. I vowed to delve deeper, hoping to unravel the mystery surrounding this enigmatic gateway. I spent the next day at the local library, sifting through old newspapers and archives, searching for any mention of Peter Alderley or strange events linked to slides. Hours ticked by in the dim, quiet confines, the whisper of pages turning the only sound. I felt like a detective in one of those old mystery novels, each revelation shedding just a flicker of light on the unknown. Finally, I found something, a brief note about Peter's adventures, penned by a teacher who had been concerned about his absences. Descriptions of his accounts were fragmented yet vivid, stepping through veils of mist, encountering strange creatures, and emerging miles away, often with just minutes on the clock. It was filled with a child's imagination, and yet uncomfortably credible. The sun had started to set as I left the library, my mind swirling with what I had learned. The nagging question remained, what was the slide? A portal? A glitch in reality? Whatever it was, it needed closer investigation. Back home, I watched Jenny and her friends from the kitchen window, my heart heavy with both the knowledge I'd uncovered and the unknown still ahead. The wind had picked up, brushing through the trees with a whisper that sounded almost like laughter. It was as if the backyard itself was aware, alive in its own way, watching the children play, daring me to stop them or let them pass through again and again. I needed more proof, but my resolve was firm. I wouldn't let this slide swallow my daughter. To test my theory further, I decided to film it with an old video camera. It was evening, the sun dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in dark hues as I set up the camera on a tripod facing the slide. Clutching the device nervously, I called Jenny and her friends to play as usual. Hiding my apprehension, I encouraged them to use the slide while I tinkered with the zoom and angle. It wasn't long before they obliged, their laughter a jarring counterpoint to my growing unease. My eyes rarely strayed from the viewfinder, keen for any anomaly to surface. Jenny climbed the ladder with all the confidence a child could muster. As she disappeared down the slide, the camera captured the unsettling pause, a blank frame where she should have been, a split second like a missing heartbeat. Emerging laughter broke the tension as she came into sight again. Each repetition heightened my anxiety. I replayed the footage over and over, and there it was, a ripple, a gap, a small but stark imprint in time where nothing existed. I felt the blood drain from my face as the implications settled in. This was real. It defied logical explanation, yet it was undeniable. As night settled in, swallowing the last vestiges of daylight, I could not shake off the looming dread. My backyard held a mystery, no longer benign, and I needed to decide what to do with this unnatural knowledge. The eerie footage played over in my mind, a haunting loop I couldn't escape. The next day, I reached out to a friend who dabbled in the paranormal. Nicole had always been a bit quirky, with her wild stories about haunted houses and ghostly whispers. We met at a small, quiet cafe. Over steaming cups of coffee, I showed her the footage. She leaned in closer, her eyes narrowing, brows furrowing in concentration. "You've got something here," she whispered, a hint of awe in her voice. Nicole believed the slide might be a transient aperture, an entry point to another dimension or reality. Her description felt outlandish, yet I couldn't dismiss it. "You need to be careful," she warned, voice low. "These things don't just open without a reason." Sitting back, her words echoed in the pit of my stomach. The weight of the slide's mystery was heavy, pressing down with unsettling insistence. What if Jenny or another child got stuck or lost beyond that shimmer? With renewed determination, I left the cafe, resolved to unravel the slide's secret. A storm was approaching, both in the skies above and in the labyrinth of unknown possibilities that loomed over my normally quiet suburban life. During my restless sleep, dreams of the slide haunted me, twisting into bizarre shapes, each more sinister than the last. I awoke in a cold sweat, the echoes of a child's laughter still ringing in my ears. Determined to do something, I resolved to keep Jenny away from the backyard until I had answers. The weather had turned vicious, clouds dark and threatening as the day wore on. Pacing the house, I tried to think of what I could do. Each time I glanced outside, the slide gleamed malevolently, daring me to interact with it again. On impulse, I decided to call the previous homeowner. After a long search through records and numerous calls, I managed to reach Mrs. Alderley. Her voice was weary, surprisingly thin over the line. When I broached the subject, a tense silence stretched between us. Finally, she spoke, her voice carrying an edge of resigned truth. "We never knew what it was," she confessed. "Peter was strange, yes, but the slide had its own ways, kept him entertained, in more ways than one." Nervously, she continued to recount Peter's odd tales, challenges faced, and steps taken before they left it behind. Her voice wavered, both fearful and relieved at no longer facing the unknown. She wished me luck, a suggestion more foreboding than comforting. After hanging up, I stood by the window, fear and frustration knotting inside me like coiled wire. Hope came unexpectedly, in the form of an old journal I discovered in a forgotten drawer. It was Peter Alderley's journal, the pages brittle and yellowing, filled with a child's messy scrawl, a treasure trove of accounts about his journeys down the slide. Carefully, I read each entry, piecing together a story that was both extraordinary and terrifying. The slides were portals, gateways to places both wonderful and treacherous. Descriptions of dazzling colors, strange landscapes, and shadowy figures filled the pages, each tale more bizarre than the last. One entry caught my breath, a hand-drawn map of sorts, with lines and shapes that seemed like pathways or mazes. A note at the bottom made my heart race. "If lost, follow the light." What light? What was this map showing? It suggested a means to navigate this other world, or a way back, possibly. Empowered by newfound knowledge, I resolved to use the journal as a guide, a lifeline should I need it. But fear remained. Was this now my responsibility, the burden to protect Jenny and others from unknowable dangers? I spent a restless night, heart heavy with dread and anticipation. The storm howled outside, echoing my inner turmoil, as if the very essence of my world was preparing for a dramatic revelation. After sleepless nights and endless worry, I made a decision. I needed to experience the slide myself, to confront whatever reality lay beyond. It was the only way to truly understand, to find a way to stop it, if necessary. The next morning was unexpectedly serene, with clear skies and a warm breeze. I geared up, slipping Peter's journal into my backpack. The garden was eerily still, and the slide glimmered as always, innocent yet menacing. With a deep breath, I approached the slide. The metal felt cool under my touch, sturdy and unyielding. As I sat at the top, heart pounding in my chest, I recalled Peter's maps and the reassurance of the light. Sliding down, fear gripped me. The world blurred, dissolving into colors and shadows, a maelstrom swirling all around. Seconds felt like hours, my body weightless, as if falling through air. Then, landing abruptly, I found myself elsewhere. The air felt charged, colored with hues unseen before, and silence wrapped me in its thick embrace. I glanced around, searching for landmarks from the journal, feeling the pressing urgency to find the light Peter wrote of. In this strange world, I needed to be wary and brave. My mission, both simple and monumental, returned safely with answers. Before me lay a distorted landscape, beyond words, yet captured perfectly in Peter's journal entries. Twisted trees reached towards a sky painted in impossible shades. Colors shifted constantly, as if alive, and the air buzzed with an electric hum. Taking cautious steps, I discovered that each surface felt simultaneously familiar and foreign. My senses were on high alert. Every sound amplified rustling leaves, distant echoes, and the pulse of my own racing heart. In desperation, I clutched the journal, flipping through the pages, seeking guidance amidst the vibrant chaos. The map seemed to suggest a path, a sequence of steps to navigate this labyrinth. But the cryptic note, "Follow the light," remained elusive. As I moved forward, time itself felt unstable. Moments stretched and contracted, a surreal dance between reality and dream. Questions whispered in my mind. Was this fleeting? Would I be able to retrace my steps? Could I ever truly understand this phenomenon? The journey felt eternal, yet hopeful. A shred of light flickered in my sight, a beacon beckoning. I pushed forward, hopeful this represented my way home, the connection back to my world. With each step, the path seemed to clear, illuminated with a clarity that brought both comfort and determination. The landscape shifted with each step, a world teetering on the brink of recognition. Everywhere I turned, fragments of reality danced just out of reach. My heart raced, fear and awe mingled as I pressed on. Faint whispers drifted through the air, indistinct yet strangely familiar, like the ghosts of memories long past. Their origins were shadowy, lurking in the corners of this dreamlike realm. With each passing moment, my resolve hardened, the light grew brighter, a thread I clung to, weaving through the vibrant maze. I felt like a child again, armed only with naive bravery as I stepped deeper into the unknown. Amidst the shifting hues, I spotted familiar landmarks, a twisted oak, a shimmering brook, all described in Peter's notes. These touchstones fueled my determination, guiding me back to the path. Suddenly, the light flared brightly, instinctively pulling me towards it. Immersed in a rush of emotion, everything around me seemed to stabilize for just a moment. I reached out, desperate to make contact, to find my way home ready to confront whatever the consequences might be. Approaching the light felt like stepping into a stillness where time halted entirely. The hum of the environment dimmed to a whisper, leaving just me and the luminous guide ahead. It was then that I felt it, a presence, an awareness, not hostile, but watchful, almost protective, as if this place had a consciousness of its own. My fingers brushed against the light, tingling with energy, and a warmth spread through me. In the heart of the glow, images unfurled, glimpses of children playing, laughing, their essence intertwined with the slide. It was a cycle, a spiral of connections that blurred the lines of time and space. I was paralyzed by clarity, the perception that the slide was more than a portal. It was a guardian, ensuring those who ventured were guided and returned, changed but safe. The warmth intensified, cradling me until my eyes fluttered open, my feet planted firmly on solid ground. The backyard greeted me as the mundane world slipped back into focus. I was here with answers that stirred more questions, but also a profound understanding. It was a dawn of acceptance, recognition of the extraordinary within the ordinary. Back in my ordinary world, the slide stood innocuously in the yard, its shine less foreboding under the cheerful morning light. I watched Jenny play, her laughter infectious and pure. Grasping the journal with newfound respect, I realized the balance I needed to maintain. This knowledge was powerful, the line between understanding and danger a thin one. I couldn't shield the children forever, nor did I want to, but vigilance was necessary. Aware of the mysteries wrapped in seemingly ordinary things, I saw the invisible threads weaving our lives together. The ordinary became extraordinary, every sound carrying hidden messages, the wind's whisper, the creak of the swing, the rustle of leaves. I felt a connection with it all, attuned to the subtle harmonies of the universe. With my new understanding, I joined Jenny, accepting the light and shadow that life held. The backyard was more than a playscape. It was a canvas of infinite journeys where each slide was a step beyond reality's edge. and every step a nod to the magic that lay beneath. Amidst the summer days that followed, the slide remained a silent sentinel in an ever-changing world. It became a part of our life, an enigmatic touchstone that shaped our days, curiously fun, yet filled with unseen depth. Whenever a child approached, I watched closely, eyes attentive for any signs of that shimmer. Each time it loomed, I encouraged their play, guiding them carefully back if they wandered too close to the slide's secrets. Stories of the slide turned from whispered fears to tales of adventure, spun by children with innocent bravado. Their imaginations ran wild with possibilities: pirates, explorers, distant lands made real for brief moments. One evening, as the sun set, bathing the world in a golden glow, Jenny climbed onto my lap, gaze fixed on the familiar slide. "Do you think there's magic in it, Daddy?" I smiled, absorbing the profound simplicity of her question. "Maybe," I replied softly, hugging her close. "The world is full of surprises." The future stretched out, filled with potential, woven together by the laughter of children who saw infinite wonder where adults often only saw metal and plastic.